The latest viral Netflix documentary is so disturbing. Called Unknown Number, the High School Catfish. This story follows a crime that tore these two poor teenagers worlds apart. This story does share themes of cyberbullying and bullying in general, abuse, suicide, stalking, and may be very disturbing for viewers. If you cannot watch these themes, then please just click off of the video and look after yourself. It really isn't worth it. So let's set the scene. It's 2020, pre-Halloween. A mother in Michigan begins to start watching her 13-year-old daughter suffer horrendous cyberbullying for over a year, with the anonymous texter aiming for the split of her child's teenage relationship. The hurl of messages aimed towards Lauryn and Owen included the texter telling Lauryn to unalive herself and that she would be better off gone and that everyone would prefer her to be gone. Texts of a sexual nature towards Owen. These were constant and were beginning to snowball very drastically. Any parent would be so angry and fearful for their child. They'd be angry at the anonymous bully and realistically just scrambling for answers and help. Bullying can, of course, have some very detrimental effects, as many parents and people know. The National Bullying Protection Centre shared that 1 out of every 5, so 19.2% of students report being bullied. As a result of the bullying, students reported the most significant negative effects being on their feelings about themselves, with 27.8% saying this, their schoolwork for 19.7%, relationships with family and friends being 18.5%, and physical health being 13.4%. And then amongst students aged 12 to 18 who reported being bullied during school, 21.6% were bullied online or by text. As we know, bullying can result in a lot of different things. It can result in physical injury, social and emotional distress, self-injury, and even ultimately death. It also increases the risks of depression and anxiety, sleep difficulties, lower academic achievement, and dropping out of school. I would say the main majority of adults know the risks of bullying, and I think as a parent you would be absolutely petrified. So imagine the shock when it is revealed that Kendra Licari, the mother of Lauryn Licari, has been the anonymous texter for over a year, sending the waves of sexual and detrimental texts to these two young teenagers. So this story is about Kendra Licari, who admitted to anonymously texting her daughter and her then boyfriend Owen messages between 2020 and 2021. Both were 13 at the time. Let's paint the picture for Kendra. She was a very loved individual. She was also let into the lives of so many different people. She volunteered to take points at the school basketball games and just helped out with the team. The school did have a very glowing report of her as an individual. She had a background in IT and seemed to be very talented at what she did. She had a loving husband and just didn't really seem to have much of a negative image at all. Kendra managed to hide her crimes, and instead of telling people that she was let go, she instead shared that she had quit these roles, which is obviously where she must have found time to be doing these cyber crimes. She was going into the school with her husband and with Owen's parents to demand that more be done for the situation, that they have to find answers and find the person who is responsible for all of this. She would attend police interviews, constantly try and find updates on the case and what's happening, and just no one had questioned it could be her. For many months, the texts continued. Annotated pictures were sent, using Lauryn's own insecurities as ammunition behind the bullying. Some think that the mother kind of weirdly boasted about using. The mother had pitted these two teenagers against each other, which ultimately tore apart their high school relationship. Even when Owen then tried to pursue other relationships with other girls, the mother had somehow managed to find the girls' numbers and then the parents' numbers and began messaging them. The poor lad shared that he did become suicidal and that he felt that he was unable to do anything at all because the stalker would ultimately follow, and that every path that he was going on, it just seemed to be destroyed. Included in this documentary were some of the girls that were actually suspected for this crime, including one girl called Chloe, which the crimes did actually begin to frame themselves around. Kendra had used information about Chloe, such as her basketball performances, and even ended up sending photos of Chloe to frame this girl for the crimes. Chloe did have a somewhat bad track record for bullying or just being in the conversation around bullying. She had denied this, and so did her parents, but in the documentary there are some other people that kind of disputed this, but ultimately she was framed as being the texter, and I think this background information was used against her. Chloe's parents are in this documentary, and they shared how sadly Chloe did lose about a year's worth of her life just because of this whole incident. People had blamed her for this crime. She had lost friends, she was being isolated, and she was just being blamed for actions that she had no part in. When an FBI agent took this case on after local sheriffs and the school were really struggling to find answers and who was responsible, the FBI did come across an initial lead that they even questioned themselves. The disturbing news found that they had found a concealed number on 2 IP addresses with multiple incidences of one particular number showing up multiple times. This was Kendra Licari. Even the FBI agents really struggled to believe this information. However, armed with a search warrant for the electronics, they headed to the home of Kendra Licari, and Kendra did actually confess to the crimes to the sheriff for the cyberbullying.
My number?
Yep. Does it have to do with Owen? Is there an infatuation there with Owen?
No, nothing like that.
Okay. Can you just tell me what did he treat Lauryn bad? I mean, something seriously went on for a while, right?
Yeah, and it didn't start that way.
I'm sure it didn't.
I don't even know.
That's okay. Just start from the beginning. So they were dating, and then they broke up. So how did it really start? Like, why did it start? Did it start during when they were still dating?
It did.
Was he treating him bad?
But it didn't. The first ones didn't start with me.
Okay.
I will say that those ones were random or whatever.
So somebody else started those. You don't know.
But then I fed off of it.
With her daughter literally just outside, soon to be faced with the fact that her mum was responsible for the onslaught of cyberbullying, death threats, bullying over her appearance, the cause of the breakdown of her relationship, sexual messages, and all for what reason? Although Kendra was found guilty of 2 counts of stalking a minor, she has now served her prison sentence and is out of prison. A lot of people have raised eyebrows as to why she didn't get any sexual charges related to this incident, as some of the text contents were very graphic and vulgar. However, this was the charge and the sentence she was given. In the end, she was sentenced to 19 months in prison, which, to be fair, is at the higher end of the charge for the crimes that she was charged with. However, is it really long enough? People are questioning, of course, why she did this crime. Did she have some sort of feelings towards Owen? Was this some sort of narcissistic personality disorder? Was this a thrill of attention? During this documentary, Kendra has framed the reasoning on her own past traumas, that in some bizarre way she wanted to protect her daughter from the exact things that she'd been through. She tried to reason that she didn't start the messages to begin with, but rather joined in to try and catch out the person who did actually start them. She then just shared that she got a bit caught up in it and it all just kind of spiraled out of control. However, even the law enforcement officers didn't believe this story necessarily, from at least what the show shares, which, to be honest, I think most people can agree with. It doesn't make sense. She did say in the documentary that along some lines she regretted her crimes, but I think people can form their own opinion on if they think that is actually true. I will say, sadly, the mother doesn't actually seem to be aware of just the scale of the crime that she's committed. Part of the documentary does share Kendra's views. She starts saying that most people have committed a crime, saying that people are quick to judge, but most have broken the law. She compared her crimes to that of a drunk driver, that she is the one to be judged only because she is the one that got caught, and that the two things are comparable, just everyone's judging her because she was caught and that other people who drunk drove weren't. It's a very bizarre take.
Every single one of us makes mistakes. Not a single one of us has lived a perfect life, and realistically, a lot of us have probably broke the law at some point or another and not got caught. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm sure people drove drunk, haven't been caught, right? But again, if you get caught, you're in the same situation and I'm in, but for a different thing. So I do feel that, people lose sight of that. I know to some, I'm a headline, I'm a villain, I'm a bad mom, I'm a whatever. But that's because they know one little piece of my story.
I just think this is very out of touch, and I think anyone who reads the story is just absolutely sickened at how a mother could do this to their own child. But she thinks this is comparable to probably, I'd argue, lesser crimes. Don't get me wrong, I don't think you can necessarily compare crimes. Obviously, breaking the law isn't great, but what she did to her daughter was unimaginable, and a lot of people are calling her a monster and a lot of things associated with that. And I think just being able to do this to someone in general, let alone your own child, is disturbing. At one point, the interviewer asks Kendra if she saw herself in this situation, and Kendra tried to say that the words she was saying to Lauryn were actually more so aimed at herself, such as Kendra latched on and agreed that she herself was too skinny or just very skinny in general, which was one of the insecurities that Kendra had picked up on Lauryn, which she did use in the onslaught of bullying. She then tried to frame it instead that her messaging wasn't towards Lauryn, but more so inwards at herself. I think the interviewer was trying to catch something from Kendra and just kind of paint the picture of what Kendra is actually like. I don't think this was true on Kendra's behalf, because I don't see how the bullying messages she sent to Lauryn, she could try and justify that actually they were for herself, but they were also being sent to Owen, and it's just very complex. One thing I did find very bizarre was just how detached Kendra seemed during the interviews. For a large portion of the documentary, you're actually unaware that Kendra was behind the crimes. And to be honest, the way that Kendra speaks throughout the documentary, you really would not expect that it was her that was the texter behind all of this. I just found it so disturbing, the lack of association with it. There wasn't an excess in emotion. You didn't feel like this overwhelming aura of guilt. Personally, if anything, I feel like her tone seemed a bit more boastful. I found that very alarming, just how detached from the situation she was, and that you could go on for the program for so long without even realizing it was her. The daughter has now shared that she wishes to be able to be in contact with her mum again when the time is right, and that she feels like she is missing a part of her, but right now she is not allowed to, and currently she is in full custody of her father.
Rebuilding our relationship will help both of us a lot. I love her more than anything.
Watching the Netflix documentary, the mother did seem to be very controlling, even just outside of obviously the texting. When Lauryn was told of her mum's crimes, her mum cradled Lauryn as the poor girl seemed to be dissociating, or at least what it seemed as she was told of her mother's actions. Kendra also believes that they can have a normal, healthy relationship going forward in the future. I personally think that is a very concerning idea. The damage this situation could have caused can likely cause lifelong trauma and damage. Maybe problems that might not even surface for a long time. The one person that she should trust overall has ultimately tore her life apart. And I just think reintroducing that person is very concerning. The trauma behind this whole situation, I mean, she will now probably struggle to trust anyone. You know, if you can't trust the people closest to you, then who can you trust? I think this will easily cause problems in future relationships. Maybe this will even put her off having children in the future. I just think there's a lot of different things buried underneath that could easily resurface. I mean, such as the text of saying that people would be better off without her. You know subconsciously that your own mother said this about you. Who's to say in a few years' time that won't resurface and keep resurfacing? Even if right now she doesn't really feel the large, overwhelming reality of this situation, as she grows older, as she understands more about what's right and what's wrong and family dynamics and kind of your own understandings of a person, of what's right and what's wrong, I think as this grows and develops, as she becomes a full adult, I just think this is very concerning, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's got then lifelong issues and trauma, and just reintroducing someone who caused all of this and shows to be very controlling just seems the worst idea. The documentary did miss out some points that I wanted to add in, just to kind of add in and see what you think the tone actually is. So when Lauryn started dating Owen, apparently Kendra was obsessed. All the dates, Kendra would insist on coming. Every opportunity there were photographs taken, and all of these were then turned into gifts, such as personalised phone cases that would always be given to Owen. Kendra would even reply to her daughter's messages with Owen, saying things like, "I love you," as if it was from Lauryn's perspective. During lockdown, the two families also joined, would also have bonfires and dinners, and formed a bubble as part of their social allowance during lockdown. During 8th grade, Kendra signed up to coach Owen's track team and almost forming a second mum figure, as Owen would state. At one point, Kendra even suggested that the Licari family holiday should now be centred around Owen's tournament in Florida. However, Owen's mum, Jill, did kindly say no to this. Boyer, which is the principal of the school that the two kids attended, did state it was kind of like a cyber-Munchausen's. Munchausen's is a mental health disorder in which patients feign or purposefully induce medical problems, with the motive somewhat surrounding emotional gratification and the need and want for attention and support, which can become somewhat addictive in nature and can lead to things spiralling. Dr. Mark Feldman, a professor of psychology, did write a paper in 2000 called Munchausen's by Internet, where he tracked the phenomena's growth amongst tech, such as chat forums and GoFundMes, and kind of as we see now leading up to things like TikTok. Experts in the field for this condition believe that the internet form of the condition will become the most common form. There was a 2017 paper that was never released. However, Feldman and his team did share something that might sound somewhat familiar. The team came to the conclusion that the trend could lead to parents cyberbullying their own children in the same way that some parents feign an illness with their children to satisfy their own psychological needs. This story was intense and unlike something that many of us have never seen before. It has began trending on the internet. I believe it is actually #1 on Netflix currently, and it is just so hard to wrap your head around. Why would a mother do this to their own child? Is this just the first example of potentially many more crimes to happen in this way? Do you think Kendra is actually remorseful? What are your thoughts on all of this? Please leave them down below. And please, if I did leave out any information that you think I should have included, please do let me know down below as well. I tried my best to just kind of summarise it all up and go into little bits in certain areas. However, I'd love to know if you think I missed anything out. If you found any of these discussions and topics in the video difficult, or you want to just find out more information, I will leave some websites and information down below. And of course, thank you for watching this video and supporting the channel. This one really was a wild one. I will see you in the next one.